Max Harper had always been the sort of explorer who seemed to trip over his own feet even when standing still. This particular morning on La Menace, a planet famed for its dazzling landscapes and bizarre life forms, was no different. He was perched precariously on a moss-covered ledge, squinting into a cave that shimmered with a strange, iridescent light. "Great day for an adventure," he muttered, not at all convinced. With a deep breath, he plunged into the cave, his foot catching on a protruding root. He tumbled forward, arms flailing, and landed squarely in a patch of something wet and squishy. "Oh, fantastic. Nothing like a little alien goo to start the day," he exclaimed, laughter bubbling up as he peeled himself off the ground. As he regained his footing, Max noticed a plant nearby, pulsating like a heartbeat. Its leaves unfurled and curled back, revealing a sticky center that seemed to beckon him closer. "What have we here?" he asked, his curiosity piqued, despite the inherent danger that often accompanied such curiosity. He reached out to poke the plant, which promptly wrapped a tendril around his wrist and yanked him closer. "Whoa, hey. Easy there, I didn't sign up for a plant-hugging session," Max exclaimed, his voice a mix of panic and amusement. He struggled against the tendril, which only tightened its grip, making him wonder if it was a plant or just an over-enthusiastic friend. Just as he was about to panic, he overheard voices echoing from deeper within the cave. "Phase 3 is complete. Once we control the indigenous life forms, the galaxy will be ours," one voice chirped, smooth and sinister. "Must we really do this, Commander?" replied another voice, which sounded oddly comical. "I mean, controlling the whole planet feels a bit overambitious, doesn't it?" Max's eyes widened. "What the heck?" He squirmed to get free, but the plant held on like a toddler refusing to let go of a parent's leg. "Of course it's ambitious. The Zelthari will not be denied their rightful dominion," the first voice said with fervor. Max was intrigued and, more importantly, horrified. He had stumbled upon a conspiracy. The Zelthari, a race of insectoid creatures known for their parasitic control over other species, were planning to expand their grip beyond La Menace. He felt a wave of responsibility wash over him. He couldn't let this happen. "Gotta do something," he whispered to himself. Just then, with a surprising burst of strength, he yanked his wrist free. The plant retracted in surprise, and Max took off deeper into the cave, propelled by a mix of adrenaline and the threat of becoming a drone in some alien army. Emerging into a wider chamber, he found himself face to face with a small, oddly shaped creature. It was bright green with big, googly eyes and a wide mouth that stretched into an awkward smile. "Hiya. I'm Gorp. You're not one of those Zelthari, are ya?" Max blinked, bewildered. No. Just a guy who nearly became plant food. What are you doing here?" "I was minding my own business when the Zelthari started their creepy takeover. But don't worry. I'm totally on your side. They can't control me. My brain's too squishy for that." Gorp exclaimed, his enthusiasm infectious. Max couldn't help but chuckle. "All right, Gorp, I could use a partner. What do you know about these bugs?" "Well, they're pretty gross, but they have some weaknesses. They don't like loud noises or being tickled. True story. If you make them laugh, they forget what they're doing," Gorp said, grinning. Max raised an eyebrow. "Are you serious? So, we just need to crack some jokes and they'll lose their grip on the planet?" "Exactly." Gorp nodded vigorously. "But we need a plan first." With a shared sense of purpose, the two unlikely allies set out to devise a strategy. They decided their first move would be to sneak into the Zelthari hive, which was located on the other side of a vast field of peculiar flowers that sang when the wind blew. "Sounds easy enough," Max said, though he wasn't convinced. "Just follow my lead." Gorp chirped, leading the way through the jungle. The singing flowers turned out to be more distracting than anticipated. As they walked, the flowers began to belt out a tune that sounded suspiciously like a cheesy pop song from Max's home planet. Why do I feel like I'm in an alien musical? Max mused, trying to suppress a laugh as they danced awkwardly past the singing flora. Suddenly, they came across a group of local creatures, each more bizarre than the last. Some had 4 arms, others sported feathered tails, and all looked at Max and Gorp with wary eyes. "Who are you?" one of them asked, crossing its arms. "You look like a couple of spies." Max straightened up, puffing out his chest. "Spies? Us? No way. We're here to stop the Zelthari from taking over." "Yeah, right," another creature scoffed. "You can't even walk straight." "Hey! That was one time." Max shot back, defensively, but as he began to explain their mission, the creatures started to warm up to him, intrigued by the idea of fighting back against the Zelthari. Max, with his characteristic charm and humor, spun a wild tale of his exploits, embellishing details for dramatic effect. Soon, they were a ragtag group, united by the common goal of thwarting the Zelthari's plans. With a plan forming, Max and his new allies made their way to the Zelthari hive. The entrance loomed before them like a gaping mouth, dripping with a greenish goo. Gorp turned to Max, eyes wide with excitement. "Ready for some action?" "Ready as I'll ever be," Max said, though he couldn't help but feel a flutter of nerves. Inside, the hive was a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers, filled with strange, glowing pods that pulsed ominously. Max felt a shiver run down his spine as they crept through the dark. They had just reached the central chamber when a loud buzzing sound erupted, echoing off the walls. "What was that?" Max whispered, glancing around. That's probably not good," Gorp replied, peering nervously into the shadows. Max held up a finger, signaling for silence. Then, peering into the dim light, he spotted the Zelthari soldiers milling about, discussing their plans in their insect-like chittering. "Okay, time for the ultimate distraction," Max said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Gorp, do you have any idea how to make these guys laugh?" Gorp thought for a moment, then beamed. "I have a few tricks up my sleeve." Max took a deep breath, prepared to be the sidekick in this bizarre endeavor. "Let's do it." Gorp stepped forward, puffing out his chest. "Hey, Zelthari! Why did the Zelthari cross the galaxy?" he yelled, his voice echoing through the chamber. Max cringed. "Oh boy, here we go, to control the other side." Gorp finished, looking proud of himself. There was a beat of silence before one of the Zelthari burst out laughing, its antennae vibrating with delight. To Max's surprise, others soon joined in, their laughter ringing through the hive. "Hey, this might actually work," Max exclaimed, feeling a rush of adrenaline. Encouraged by the laughter, Gorp launched into a series of increasingly ridiculous jokes. "What do you call a Zelthari with a sunburn?" "A baked bug." Laughter erupted, the Zelthari momentarily forgetting their sinister plans. Seizing the moment, Max grabbed a strange device that was lying on a nearby console. "Let's get out of here while we can," he shouted, and they raced back through the hive, Gorp still cracking jokes as they went, but as they neared the exit, the laughter turned to alarm. "Hey! Stop them," a commanding voice bellowed. Max glanced back, heart pounding. Time for a dramatic escape. They burst through the entrance, skidding to a halt as they stumbled into the bright light of Menace. But behind them, the sound of buzzing wings filled the air. "Run!" Max shouted, and they sprinted across the field of singing flowers, the Zelthari hot on their heels. As they raced through the field, the flowers began to react to the commotion, belting out a cacophony of sound that added to the chaos. "This is turning into a musical after all," Max shouted, laughing despite the danger. They zigzagged through the flowers, dodging Zelthari as they went. Max could feel the thrill of the chase, a surge of energy pushing him forward. "Almost there," he yelled, pointing toward the tree-line where safety awaited. Just as they burst into the cover of the trees, Max felt a sharp tug on his leg. He looked down to see one of the Zelthari reaching for him. "No! Get off. In a desperate move, he kicked out, and to his shock, the Zelthory soldier went flying into a nearby flower patch, which erupted into song. The distraction momentarily confused the others. Keep going, Gorp urged, and they sprinted deeper into the forest. As they finally reached a clearing, panting and exhilarated, Max felt a mix of disbelief and pride. They had escaped, at least for now. But as they caught their breath, the reality of the situation settled in. We need a plan, Max said, glancing at Gorp, who was still buzzing with excitement. Yeah. We can't let them regroup, Gorp replied, eyes sparkling. Max nodded, determination flickering within him. All right, we'll need to gather more allies and come up with a way to strike back. As they strategized, the weight of the challenge ahead loomed large. But if there was one thing Max had learned, it was that humor could light the darkest paths. And with Gorp by his side, perhaps they had a chance after all. Max leaned against a tree, catching his breath and gathering his thoughts. The adrenaline was still pulsing through him, making his heart race. Okay, we need to regroup and figure out our next move. We can't just keep running forever. Those Zelthory will be back, and they won't be laughing next time. Gorp nodded, his big eyes wide with determination. We could gather more creatures. If we can unite everyone, we can take the fight to them. Max smiled at Gorp's enthusiasm. Great idea. But we need to make sure we find those who are willing to fight back. The last thing we want is to bring a bunch of doubters into the mix. They began to brainstorm a list of potential allies. Max thought of the creatures they'd encountered in the jungle, the singing flowers, the wary locals, even the paranoid group that had initially mistrusted them. What about that group we met earlier? He suggested. They seemed interested in what we had to say. Yeah. And they were pretty funny too, Gorp added. If we can get them to join us, we might stand a chance. With a plan forming, they set off toward the location where they had first met the local creatures. The path through the jungle was thick, and they had to duck under low-hanging branches and navigate around vines that seemed determined to trip them up. As they walked, Gorp broke the tension with a series of jokes about the flora around them, his silly humor brightening the mood. Why do flowers always drive so fast? He quipped. Why? Max asked, suppressing a grin, because they put the pedal to the metal. Gorp giggled, and Max couldn't help but chuckle despite their dire situation. When they arrived at the clearing, Max called out to the group of creatures. Hey! We're back. We need to talk. A few creatures emerged cautiously, their expressions a mix of curiosity and wariness. You again, one of them, a stout creature with 3 eyes, said. What do you want now? Max stepped forward, channeling his inner motivational speaker. Listen, we've got a serious situation on our hands. The Zelthory are planning to take over this planet. We need to band together if we want to stop them. A murmur of concern rippled through the group. But what can we do? Another creature asked. They're powerful. They might be powerful, but they're also ridiculous, Gorp piped up, jumping into the conversation. If we use our strengths and combine them, we can outsmart them. Max nodded in agreement. Exactly. We need to exploit their weaknesses. If we can make them laugh, confuse them, we can create a distraction long enough to strike. The stout creature considered this for a moment, glancing around at the others. It's a crazy plan, but it might just work. I'm in. One by one, the other creatures began to agree. Count me in. I'm game. Let's give those bugs what they deserve. Their spirits lifted, and soon, the clearing was filled with excited chatter. All right. Max clapped his hands together. Let's brainstorm some strategies. We need jokes, distractions, anything that can catch them off guard. Gorp, you're the master of puns. What do you have? Gorp stood up straight, a mischievous gleam in his eye. I've got a whole repertoire. We could start with something light. How about this? Why did the Zelthory bring a ladder to the bar? Because they heard the drinks were on the house. The group erupted in laughter, and Max felt a wave of relief wash over him. Perhaps this crazy plan could actually work. They spent the next hour brainstorming, trading jokes and ideas, while Max outlined a plan to lure the Zelthory into a trap. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple, they finalized their strategy. We'll set up near the edge of the field where they first caught sight of us, Max said. We'll create a distraction and draw them in. Gorp and I will handle the jokes, and the rest of you will be ready to spring into action. Everyone nodded, excitement building. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, they set off, energized by their newfound camaraderie. When they arrived at the field, Max took a moment to observe the surroundings. This is it, he said. Get ready. The group scattered into position, hiding behind the singing flowers that still swayed gently in the evening breeze. Max and Gorp stood at the front, waiting for the Zelthory to approach. Remember, timing is everything, Max reminded Gorp. We need to catch them off guard. Got it. I've got my best material ready. Gorp replied, bouncing on his feet. Just then, the buzzing sound of the Zelthory filled the air, and Max's heart raced. Here they come, he hissed, watching as a group of the insectoid soldiers advanced, their antennae twitching. Showtime. Gorp shouted, stepping out from behind the flowers. Hey, Zelthory. Why don't you come a little closer? We've got a joke for you. The Zelthory halted, their compound eyes narrowing. Who dares disrupt our patrol? One of them demanded, brandishing a small weapon. Just a couple of guys who think you could use a laugh. Max called out, stepping forward with a goofy grin. Stand down, the Zelthory leader ordered, but his tone was more curious than angry. Max seized the moment. What do you get when you cross a Zelthory with a time traveler? He asked, a playful smirk on his face. Silence, the leader shouted, but a few soldiers began to snicker. Curiosity piqued a future bug. Gorp shouted, his eyes wide with excitement. To Max's astonishment, a ripple of laughter broke through the ranks of the Zelthory. The absurdity of the situation, the brave little creatures standing against the powerful soldiers, armed only with jokes, was enough to create a crack in their tough exterior. Why did the Zelthory get kicked out of school? Max continued, not willing to let the momentum slip away. Because they kept bugging the teacher. The laughter grew, the soldiers clearly caught off guard by the sudden onslaught of humor. What is happening? The leader stammered, clearly confused by the unexpected turn of events. Just a little comedy show. We'll keep it coming. Gorp exclaimed, diving into another joke. Did you hear about the Zelthory who failed at being a mind controller? He couldn't keep his thoughts straight. Max and Gorp launched into a flurry of puns and jokes, using every ounce of creativity they had. The Zelthory, who had entered the field with the intent to capture or destroy, were now laughing uncontrollably. Max felt a rush of adrenaline and hope. Maybe this would actually work. As they continued their comedic barrage, the Zelthory began to lose their composure, stumbling over one another as they fell into fits of laughter. Sensing the moment was right, Max signaled to the hidden creatures. Now, he yelled, and from their positions, the other creatures sprang into action. they charged toward the disoriented Zelthory, throwing whatever they could find, small rocks, handfuls of leaves, anything that could create a distraction. The Zelthory were caught completely off guard, struggling to regain their footing as laughter echoed through the field. Go, go, go! Mechs shouted, adrenaline surging as they pressed their advantage. The local creatures were fearless, darting between the Zelthory, throwing improvised projectiles and continuing the comedic onslaught. Mechs grabbed Gorp's arm. We need to lead them away from the field. Let's draw them toward the forest. Right behind you. Gorp replied, his voice full of excitement. They dashed toward the tree-line, the Zelthory buzzing in confusion, still unable to fully comprehend what was happening. What is this madness? One of them yelled, trying to regroup. Just a little fun. Mechs shot back, darting into the trees, with Gorp right beside him. The chaos unfolded behind them, as the local creatures worked together to create further distractions, scattering into the underbrush. Mechs and Gorp led the Zelthory deeper into the forest, laughing as they weaved between the trees, pulling the soldiers further away from their hive. As they emerged into another clearing, Mechs turned to Gorp. Now what? Now we regroup and prepare for the final stand. Gorp said, his eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. Mechs looked around. The forest was quieter now, the sounds of the Zelthory fading into the distance. Okay, let's rally the troops again. We've done well, but we need to strike a final blow. They rounded up the local creatures, who were still buzzing with excitement over their victory. We're not done yet. Mechs said, addressing them. This is our chance to put an end to the Zelthory's plans once and for all. Are you with us? Absolutely, one creature shouted, its three eyes shining with determination. Let's show those bugs they messed with the wrong planet, another yelled, and a chorus of agreement followed. All right, here's the plan, Mechs began, outlining their strategy. We'll split into two groups. One will create a distraction while the other sneaks into the hive to disable their control devices. Gorp, you'll lead the distraction. Leave it to me. I'll have them rolling on the floor in no time. Gorp replied, brimming with confidence. As they prepared for the final push, Mechs felt a surge of hope. Together, they had turned the tide against the Zelthory, and now, they were ready to take the fight to them. As dusk settled over La Menace, painting the sky with vibrant hues, they moved with purpose, ready to confront the Zelthory and reclaim their planet. Mechs couldn't shake the feeling that this was their moment, the culmination of their courage, humor, and teamwork. They approached the hive once more, the entrance looming ominously before them. Remember, no matter what happens, stick together, Mechs reminded everyone. With a nod of determination, they entered the hive, the air thick with tension. Inside, the familiar pulsing of the pods greeted them, and the Zelthory soldiers were in disarray, still recovering from their earlier humiliation. Now. Mechs signaled, and Gorp leaped forward, launching into a barrage of jokes that echoed through the chamber. What do you call a bug that can't stop telling jokes? A ponderful pest. The Zelthory turned, their confusion evident, but this time, it was different. They were ready for a fight. Yet as Gorp continued to unleash his comedic genius, the soldiers struggled to maintain their composure. Go, go, go! Mechs urged, signaling the second group to move in. They dashed toward the control center, where the Zelthory were stationed, trying to regain their footing. As the creatures rushed in, Mechs spotted the control devices, glowing pods that pulsed ominously, humming with energy. Over here, he shouted to his team. They quickly began disabling the devices, working together to dismantle the systems that had been controlling their friends and family. The energy in the room shifted as the Zelthari struggled to regain control over their drones, their laughter fading into panic. "What's happening?" the leader yelled, his voice strained. "Just a little home improvement." Gorp called back, still delivering punchlines amidst the chaos. With a final effort, Max and the others managed to disable the last device, and the hive fell silent. The Zelthari soldiers stood in shock, their plans unraveling before them. "Now, it's time for you to leave Luminous," Max declared, stepping forward, a sense of victory swelling within him. "This planet doesn't belong to you." The Zelthari exchanged nervous glances, realizing they were outnumbered and outsmarted. One by one, they retreated, the last remnants of their confidence evaporating. "We'll be back," their leader spat, but there was no conviction behind his words. Max watched as they fled, a mix of relief and exhilaration coursing through him. They had done it. They had turned the tide and protected their home. Gorp bounced over to him, still buzzing with energy. "Did you see that? We totally did it. I mean, it was a little messy, but we pulled it off." Max laughed, the weight of their victory settling over him like a warm blanket. "Yeah, we really did. I can't believe it actually worked." As the local creatures cheered and celebrated their victory, Max felt a sense of pride swell within him. He had come to Luminous looking for adventure, but he had found so much more: friendship, laughter, and a sense of purpose. In the days that followed, Max and Gorp worked alongside the locals to repair the damage caused by the Zelthari. They shared stories, jokes, and laughter, reinforcing the bonds they had formed through their shared experiences. One evening, as the sun set over the lush landscape, Max sat with Gorp by a glowing fire, surrounded by their new friends. "You know," he said, gazing into the flames, "I never expected to end up here, fighting off alien bugs with a bunch of misfits. But I wouldn't change it for anything." Gorp grinned, his wide smile illuminating the dusk. "Neither would I. We make a pretty awesome team." "Yeah, we do," Max agreed, his heart full. "And if those Zelthari ever come back, they better be ready for some serious laughter." The fire crackled, and the stars began to twinkle above them, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope and humor could light the way. Max knew that whatever adventures awaited him next, he was ready to face them, with friends by his side and a quiver of puns at the ready. And with that thought, he smiled, knowing that Luminous was safe, at least for now. The laughter and camaraderie they had built would endure, and together, they would be ready for whatever came next. The end.